All right, good morning, guys. Quick sound check. Let me know that you guys can hear me. How's everybody doing this morning? It is Monday, the 25th of March here, 3:25. Sound check 1, 2. Awesome, thanks, Ryan. Hope you guys had a good weekend. What's up, Parker, Ernest? Hopefully, you guys had a good weekend, and we're getting some good volatility. Yeah, you can talk in the YouTube. Yeah, that's fine. Actually, it's easier if you guys all type in one. So if it's easier for you guys to type in YouTube, then feel free to go there. If not, you guys can always talk in the Discord. I have both of them up there, so not a problem either way. Um, Anyways, though, coming into today, we've had some interesting overnight action already, and I want to take a look at some of that. But first things first, knock out of the way the Forex Factory earnings calendar or events calendar here. And you can see for today, there's really nothing in red for the U.S. markets there. There's actually nothing here that would really affect the U.S. markets except for potentially this FOMC member Evans speaking at 2 a.m., which has already happened. Obviously, it's 9 o'clock in the morning here. So we got another FOMC member speaking at 8:30 tonight. So if you're around for the night session, then maybe keep an eye on that. It's not highlighted in red, but it still could have some impact. We are, however, going to have some news coming out later this week. Coming in tomorrow, we've got some consumer confidence numbers. So if you're holding any positions overnight for that, just keep that in mind. And then we've got some Euro news and some Canadian news coming out on Wednesday. So pretty clear for the next few days with one little consumer confidence there, 10 a.m. tomorrow that we'll pay attention to. So that's what I'm looking at when it comes to the news. Now, let's take a look here kind of at the markets, and I'm going to bring over my main watch list here that I like to look at. And you can see so far we've got S&P's, Nasdaq, Russell, and Dow at the top there, and these are going to be all the instruments that you're able to trade in Nadex as well. And what I'm seeing right now is we've got basically a 100-point range happening in the Nasdaq. 73.90.50 is the top, 72.90 is the bottom. So we've got 100 points of range so far in the overnight session for Sunday evening, which is a fairly large range. If you guys are not familiar with the Nasdaq futures, that's $2,000 per contract. If you want to be technical about it, it's $2,010 per contract there, the total range we've had so far. So I do want to keep that in mind kind of coming into the day. And the fact that we've rallied so much of that move back leads me to kind of lean to the long side. So let's take a look at the charts and see what we've got going. So I'm going to break down, run my analysis here on the hourly chart for you guys. And I marked up a couple levels here that we could trade in the overnight session. And I'm going to walk through and in today's session as well. And I'm going to walk through what they mean and what my plan is here going into today. So Nasdaq currently trading 73.55 quarters, somewhere right around in here. It's down about 15 points on the day from the close of Friday there. And I marked up 73.30.75s, 72.87s, which did not quite trade. We got about 3 points from that level last night on new lows there, which is really interesting. I want to touch on that as well. There was a overnight divergence that occurred that I want to go through. So those are the levels I've got to the downside. I've also got 73.64 quarters here to the top side, and then 74.04 quarters. So what do all these levels mean? What it means right now for me is anything up over 74.04 quarters, I'm going to be extremely bullish on this market. We need confirmation closes above that level. And then from that point, I think we reverse this entire move to the downside and get a nice rally to the upside, fill this gap, and then kind of keep going. I've got some higher time frame targets that I think we can achieve, 200, 300, 400 points from here that will be a nice target if we can get this confirmation up over the 74.04 quarters. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I don't think it's going to trade necessarily today, but at some point over the next few days. If it can do that, then I want to look and focus heavily on longs from a swing perspective. If we maintain and keep beneath that level currently where we're at right now, then I think we've got some room to the downside here, and potentially all the way even back in here to like 72.45 and change or so. So that's what I'm focusing on there, kind of a bigger picture swing perspective. Now I want to take it down into the intraday kind of levels. And intraday, what I'm going to be watching for here, and if we turn on the extended session, you can see this, how these levels have reacted so far. We've got this nice level here at 73.30, 75s that I want to be paying attention to today. If we get any type of pullbacks to that level, that's going to be an area that I want to look on a first test for longs off of 73.30, 75s, with targets on those coming up here into 73.64 quarters, right? So we need about a 20-point drop there at the open from current prices, pick up some longs, and run those back up into 73.64 quarters. So about a 34-point profit potential on that trade. Now, if we do not hold 73.30, 75s on a first test down here, we start acting weak. We're getting some small time frame confirmation closes beneath this level. Maybe we push kind of down here under 73.25s, rally back to that point and continue to sell off. If that happens, then I think we're going to go all the way down into 72.87. So I think we'll reverse this entire move that we've gotten here since about 3 o'clock Eastern this morning, and kind of come down and tag those 72.87s. If we do get that, then this market is, potentially going to have room all the way down here, like I said, into this kind of 72.46, 45 level down in there. So from where we're currently trading, we got about 100 points to the downside if we don't hold these 73.30, 75s. And again, that's going to be dependent upon what we do here first thing coming into today and what the reactions are off of that level. So that's what I'm watching there, or for there in the NASDAQ. And then moving over here into the S&Ps. The S&Ps have a similar setup, not quite as strong, I don't think, as the NASDAQ. Again, you can see we've got, and again, I'm saying this from the chart pattern, not necessarily the percentage standpoint on the day. We've got S&Ps down 0.15% today, NASDAQ down 0.26%, Russell down 0.12%, and the Dow down 0.13%. So overall, the NASDAQ is the weakest here on the day. But from a charting perspective and the way the pattern has shaped up over the past few days, I do think the NASDAQ is stronger than the other markets. Obviously not today. And again, that's also, in part to the fact that we have had a nice rally in the NASDAQ. It can get a little bit more of a pullback here than the rest of the markets and still remain stronger. So what I'm going to be watching for, with that being said, in the S&Ps here, is going to be a pullback into 2800.75 here. If we can get that at the open, and hopefully that kind of lines up with the move that we're seeing down to 73.30, 75s in the NASDAQ, then I want to go ahead and take a look at some long opportunities here in the S&Ps. S&Ps got down to 27.90 quarters in the overnight session, so right down kind of in here, almost filling this gap, but not quite. And then now recovering and getting back above that 2800.75 level. And again, same thing holds true here for the S&Ps. If it can get above 28.2175s, which again, we traded 28.1850s as the high in the overnight session, then I want to look at a swing basis, long opportunities here with confirmations in the S&Ps for higher prices. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen today, but if it does happen at some point in time during this week, I want to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. So that's what I'm going to be watching for there when it comes to both the S&Ps and the NASDAQ. Now, I want to talk about that divergence that I was talking about for the overnight session, and just show you guys something here real quick. So for those of you that know what the divergence are, excuse me, It's when kind of one market does something that the rest of the markets are not doing. And we did actually, in fact, have this happen in the overnight session. So you can see, all right, market's sliding off. We set a low here, we bounce around. Again, this 2800.75 level comes into play once, twice, three times here in the overnight session, pretty much by a tick there, 2801, 2801. But notice what happens is we come down, we tag new lows here, 2790 quarters at about 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time here in the S&Ps, right? So take a mental snapshot of this chart right here. You'll see, okay, we set lows at about 2100 there, and then new lows at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now let's take a look at the NASDAQ. You'll see NASDAQ, same thing, right? NASDAQ comes down, sets lows at about 2100 there, rallies, boom, 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 sideways, new lows right at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's take a look here at the Russell. Oh, that's interesting. So Russell here sells off, set lows at about 2100, bounce around sideways for a bit. At 3 o'clock, we did not get new lows in the Russell, right? So we've actually established an overnight divergence in the three indices here. So we've got Russell not putting in new lows at 3 o'clock. We've got the S&Ps and the NASDAQ putting in new lows. And then the only other market to take a look at there for that is the Dow. And you can see the Dow did in fact get those new lows at about 3 o'clock as well. Same off of the, broke through the lows that were set at 2100, got those new lows there at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to venture to argue that the reason we've rallied from these overnight lows is because we set this divergence right here. And moving the mouse around a lot just so you guys can see that pattern. So anyways, that's something I noticed in, that happened in the overnight session. Now, again, I was sound asleep at this point at 3 o'clock in the morning. But these are patterns that still do occur in the overnight session. So if you're overseas somewhere that you would be awake when it's 3 o'clock Eastern here and you want to take a look at the markets, these are still very valid patterns to keep in mind and pay attention to. So just wanted to share that with you guys this morning of something I saw happening in the overnight session. Now, let me get back on track here. And I'm not going to run through the analysis here on the Russell or the Dow unless either one of those markets you guys want me to specifically take a look at. I will do so. So if you guys want me to take a look at those, just type them in the chat, either RTY or the Dow, whichever one you guys prefer, and I will take a look at those. So in the meantime, if you guys don't want me to take a look at those, I'm going to look at gold here real quick. We've got some interesting, gold's been kind of choppy lately, but we've got some interesting kind of development here happening with this new uptrend going on here. So let me take a look at this real quick. And prayer kid, yeah, actually, so I'll take a look at RTY for you just 1 second then. So I don't want to cover markets that you guys either don't trade or aren't necessarily paying attention to from a level standpoint. But if there are ticker symbols, Tesla, Apple, whatever you guys want me to take a look at, or any kind of currency pairs or whatever each morning, if you will, if it's something that's out of the norm of what I normally cover, which is going to be the main indices, kind of gold, crude, and sometimes nat gas, depending on if that's moving or not. If there is something like that that you want me to take a look at, feel free to just punch it in the chat in the morning when we get started, and I'll make sure that I save some time for that. So happy to do that for you guys. All right, so taking a look at gold here, we've got a nice breakout here coming over this 13, 16, 10 level so far this morning. And you'll notice here, if we zoom out on gold, we had a nice solid uptrend, running here, broke out the new highs, almost got the 1350s there, and then pretty much like a 70-point sell-off all the way down here into 1280s, rather aggressively here now. And we've been kind of working our way, kind of back up through this into a new uptrend here. And at this point, my concerns with gold are two things. One is that this uptrend is not going to last, and secondly, that it could go into a very choppy consolidation type of period. But again, the things that I want to pay attention to on this are, as we're still getting this rally up in gold, if we get pullbacks here to 1316.10 and those start to fail, right, then that's something to pay attention to for gold potentially, getting a move to the downside. If we look at this from, kind of a larger term perspective, right, this move down, right, over, basically the second half of February there, broke this daily uptrend. We've got lows, highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and then boom, we fail through those levels right in through here and get a nice flush down. And this could potentially just be a rally back in what is a new downtrend on a daily chart. So what I'm doing is taking a look at the hourly chart and finding, potential weakness points in the hourly chart where that's going to fail and allow the daily chart to continue to the downside. And maybe that leads us, about 60, 70 points lower here, kind of down in towards 1250s, 1260s in the gold markets. So not something I'm actively trading intraday right now with gold, but kind of a longer term thing that I want to pay attention to and see what's going to be happening with that. And that's a really good exercise for those of you that use multi-time frame analysis, is kind of stepping out to those charts and seeing, all right, what's shifting, what's changing here, and then how can I use a failure of some sort on a lower time frame or a smaller time frame to find an entry into a trade potential like that. It feels weird. I thought the bias for the day would be short, kind of in a short at the moment. Yeah, I mean, so that's what makes the market, right? Is you think short, I potentially think long. And again, I've got levels in place that if we do break those to the downside, then I'll jump on the short kind of bandwagon, if you will, and ride that move lower if it does set up. So I always like to have a couple different ideas and kind of templates or situations in my head of if the market does this on the day, then I want to react and be able to do this type of thing. So that's what I'm looking at there. And you'll see, I mean, it conflicts a lot of times. Like you'll have days where you're thinking long, but that like mentally you're thinking long, but the chart's telling you got to be short, and you just got to go with what the chart says. So, all right, let's take a look at crude oil here, and then I'll cover the RTY there at the end. So let's take a look at this. I mean, we still got long-term uptrends here in place with crude oil, and I mean, realistically today, crude oil has had about $1 range, 84-cent range on the day so far. We traded all the way down into 58.33s. We've got levels here coming in at 58.31, so we got about 2 ticks off that level here and have rallied pretty nicely. Let me see. I have not looked at this in the extended session yet. I did not mean to put that level in there. So 58.31s there, lows traded 58.33s off of that. I think this is most likely the same type of pattern we're seeing here in the markets. So keep that in mind. If the market does start to get weaker throughout the day, then this could have an impact here on crude oil as well. Again, no surprise that crude oil didn't get the new lows there kind of at 3 o'clock in the morning because the Russell did not get new lows as well. Russell and crude oil kind of tied up nicely there on that trade. So I would be leery on shorts here for crude oil if the market starts showing strength. But if the market doesn't start showing strength here, and we start kind of cracking those 73.30s in the Nasdaq and start cracking that 2800.75 in the S&Ps, then I could see a move on this back down kind of under this 58.31s, and then we kind of got some air down here into 57.80s. So I'll mark that level up there. 57.85s, 57.87. So about a 2-tick range somewhere in this area that you could potentially see for crude oil there. So I don't hate the short side on that. And I honestly don't necessarily have a complete bias direction on this outside of just moving it with the markets. So that's my take there on crude oil. Take a look at RTY, and Tony, I'll take a look at the Dow for you guys. So maybe I'll just get in the routine of doing all 4 indices each and every day for you guys. So taking a look at the Dow, or sorry, taking a look at the Russell here. And this is kind of what I was talking about when it came to earlier in the morning here, when I said that, you know, the Nasdaq was the stronger market here off the open. I mean, if you look at over the course of the past few weeks, if you look at the Russell here, you know, we're kind of sideways to down. If you look at the Nasdaq here, you know, we're like straight up over the same amount of time. Like we're way over these highs that we set kind of 3-4 so earlier this month, about 20 days ago. And the Russell is, you know, those same 3-4 highs are like right here. So we're lower, much lower. So these charts are pretty much inverse for me, the Russell and the Nasdaq. With that being said, you know, we've got some lower levels here that we can trade in the Russell. Again, it's not my favorite long setup here. You know, we've got 1507.7 and then 1494 there to the downside. So if you're looking for short setups on the day, maybe the Russell is the go-to here. If we can crack under 1507.7 is kind of where we're currently trading at. Then we've got room down here into 1494s. Maybe that lines up with the Nasdaq there on a move down to like 73.30, 75s. But either way, if you are short, this would be on game plan. If I wanted to short the Russell, if you were short the Russell and it starts trading lower, doesn't quite get those 1494s, and the Nasdaq is currently trading at that time at the 73.30.75s, then I would start to look to tighten your stops on the Russell short, because I am anticipating a long off of the Nasdaq kind of from that level. So which markets are your favorite to trade and why? I like the S&Ps and the Nasdaq. They're the two biggest markets. They've got more volume. You know, if you look at the volume kind of on the day so far, we've got, you know, 296,000 contracts have traded in the S&Ps, 131,000 in the Nasdaq, 23 and 65,000 there when it comes to the Russell and the Dow. So, I mean, the Nasdaq alone, actually, so the S&Ps alone have traded more contracts than the other 3 markets combined there. So those are the 2 that I like to focus on, is just the S&P and the Nasdaq. And then last but not least here, take a look at the Dow. And we can see, all right, so Dow's down 62 points here, trading 25,507s. And I really don't have anything here in the Dow. We got 2 solid green bars there, really nothing to pull from here in terms of levels on the hourly chart. And same thing here, excuse me, when you drill down into the 30-minute chart, there's still nothing there as well. So to be honest, the only thing I have really here in the Dow is the fact that it needs to get up over 25,682s, which is about 170 points from here, in order for this to be a good viable long setup. Otherwise, I think it's kind of in a do not trade zone beneath that point for me. So anything under that in the Dow, I'm not really going to be too focused on in terms of a trade setup for intraday or a swing basis. So Dow is probably my least favorite because I have nothing in there. Russell would be the go-to kind of for a short setup if you wanted one, and then focusing on the S&Ps and the Nasdaq for the longs. So Lou, the S&P level is 2800.75, not 2796.50. I'll cover that in the morning power hour with you guys, and kind of relook at those levels and kind of talk through why I put that level where I put it. So anyways, so yeah, the Trevor, the tool that I use to place a level so easily. So if you've got a mouse, which you should have, right? If you click the center mouse wheel like down instead of like scrolling with it, it'll pull up kind of this little, you know, box thing here, and you just click on the level you want and then kind of just place it wherever you want and then just change it back. So really handy little hack there. when it comes to, it doesn't work as well obviously on a laptop, but I mean, you can pick up a mouse with a wheel from Best Buy for, 10, 15, 20 bucks, and it'll still do the same trick. So anyways, that's what I got for you guys so far this morning. Thank you, Nicholas. Almost midnight in Australia, but super helpful. Appreciate that. Glad I could help you guys out. Anyways, that's going to wrap up my morning trade plan and what I'm looking to do here. For those of you that are in the MLT Discord, I'm going to be coming back live with you guys at 9:30 Eastern and trading live with you guys for the first hour of the day. If you're new around here and you have not watched me stream before and you have not watched me trade, and you're interested in learning more about what I do, there's a link in the description below. You guys can join the Discord. Me and Lou and Kaylin and everybody else that's in there and trade live with us each and every day, as well as you get access to Brian, Rob Shapiro, Perry, all of the content creators that we have here at Major League Trading. So that's going to be the first link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in there. And if not, I'll see you guys on the next video here live again at 9 o'clock Eastern each and every morning. Take care and trade your plans.